Cool. So hey everybody, welcome to our user group today. This is a collaboration user group between Data Plus Women London and Tableau Prep user group. So we're very excited to see you all today. On the cards today, we've got Jenny Martin from the Information Lab UK talking about how co-leading a community or co-leading the Preppin data weekly challenges and how she's found that. We then have a Tableau Prep intro and hands-on session with Sarah Solani. And we then have, after that, we've got a Tableau Prep roadmap with Mariki and Rupinder from Tableau. Just as a quick reminder as well, for those joining in live with our hands-on session of Tableau Prep intro, please don't forget to download a trial version of Tableau Prep if you don't have it already, as well as the CSV data on the links on screen. Oh my goodness. There we go, which is great. I'll leave this up for a second. So the Tableau Prep you can download from tabsoft.co/3br3zkp. And then the data that Sarah will be talking about is in tinyurl.com/prep hands-on. They're also on Twitter or on the invite. So as I mentioned, this is a collaboration with Data Plus Women London. So hello and welcome to those that are new to our community or haven't seen or heard from any of us before. We're very excited to have you here and hopefully might see you at some of our future events, given that most of them are now virtual. So hopefully we'll also see some of you when we're back in person too, maybe later in the summer. We are a community and meetup group for women who work in, with, and around data. Our aim is to promote and celebrate the achievements and success of women working in the industry and give them a platform to share their knowledge and experiences. This means that absolutely everyone is welcome. So it's great. That being said, I'd like to introduce my co-leads for this year. As you can see, we've had some changes. And we'd like to take this chance to send a massive thank you to Achana, Caroline and Clara for their amazing contributions last year. So we're more than excited to welcome our newest member, Sarah Solani, who will be leading the hands-on session for today's user group. She's been an amazing voice in our community, so I'm sure she'll do amazing things with us this year as well. I'd also like to introduce Jack Parry. He is the Tableau Prep user group lead. So over to you, Jack.
Thanks, Ellie. Yeah, so I set up the Tableau Prep user group, I think it was a year ago now. I think it was February last year, to sort of bring a community together to watch the development of Tableau Prep as a tool, and to bring people together to discuss specific use cases of Tableau Prep, or as we've got today, Jenny discussing setting up a sort of online community with Tableau Prep, or the roadmap, as Mariki and Rupinder are going to discuss with us later. So happy to be here collaborating with you guys.
Thank you. I think it was a great idea when you suggested it. So we're very excited for today's session. So I think you've got some announcement first for some till training.
Yeah, so for this is for anyone really, but especially given there may be some people on this session today that are new to Tableau Prep. At the Information Lab, we run some free Tableau training every Thursday at 3 p.m. That's GMT for those of you based in the US. The training does actually cover all aspects of Tableau, so there's some Tableau desktop training in there as well, but we have a specific Tableau Prep learning path, which is sort of outlined by the image on the left there. So we've got the Essentials, Intermediate and Advanced session, which run over 3 weeks. And we've got our next learning path starting up on the 11th of March in a couple of weeks. It's completely free. It's a 2-hour training session, hands-on experience. So it's a good thing to get involved in if you're new to Tableau Prep, or if you're perhaps already a regular user and you just want to join into maybe the intermediate or the advanced session. You don't have to do all 3, but they're just set out as continuous weeks, so you can follow it as a plan. Yes, we'll put the link in the chat as well, so you don't have to screenshot or anything. I'll do that now.
Cool, thanks, Jack. So we also have a couple of announcements for Data Plus Women. We are on LinkedIn. We've got a user group set up, a group community set up on LinkedIn, which is a really good way to collaborate with others and see and talk to other people out there. This is a Data Plus Women, I think it's mostly European group, but it's not just us in London. It's across a few different other groups as well. So definitely a network worth connecting to. And that being said, if you've just heard about our community or you have something you want to talk about and share, then please definitely sign up. We are always looking for speakers, so sign up. We will also share the link. Cool, so I will now hand over to Jenny, who will talk us through co-leading community challenges. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks Ellie. Let me just get my screen all shared for you. So I'm really happy to be able to talk at this event today. I remember coming to my first Data Plus Women event a couple of years ago now, and thinking that'd be really cool if I got to present at that one day. And here I am. Some of you may also know that I presented at the Prep user group last year, so I'm happy to sneak back in for a second presentation. Hopefully this talk will be aimed quite nicely at those of you who are familiar with Tableau Prep and Preppin data, and also those of you who might not be so familiar with it. I'll try not to go too technical into the Tableau Prep, because there's actually a lot of people who participate in Preppin data who use different softwares. They might use Ultrex, SQL, R, Python, even Power Query. So if you're familiar with any of those data prep softwares, then Preppin data could be good for you if you haven't used it before. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So first of all, I'll be talking to you about what Preppin data is, talking a little bit about sort of, when does it come out, how long has it been going on for, that sort of thing, all the nuts and bolts of the community challenge that we've set up. How do we come up with the challenges? So going into a little bit more of the how do we run it? How do we make sure that each week we have a challenge and we're not just frantically scrambling around on a Tuesday evening to sort that. And finally, I will go through very quickly a small example. I don't want to steal Sarah's thunder at all. So I won't be going too much into the what's going on in Tableau Prep side of things. It'll be more just discussing a challenge that we had a couple weeks ago, and the data set there, which is looking at male and female golfers prize winnings. So it's kind of just an interesting data set more than the Tableau Prep side of things. So to understand what Preppin data is, let's first think about where did it come from. So it came from Carl Altrin and Jonathan Allenby initially back in 2019. So Jonathan asked Carl, hey, there's an Ultrex Weekly Challenges site for helping you to learn Ultrex. How can people learn Tableau Prep? And the answer was, well, there's a bit of a gap there, isn't there? Why don't we come up with one ourselves? So that's what happened. They started releasing challenges. It started gaining momentum. And then last year, myself and Tom Prowse joined in the team to help to come up with these Preppin data challenges and really give a nice resource for anyone in the community who's wanting to learn data preparation, because it can be hard. Maybe you don't have the skills internally in your team. And so trying to get help from people with your own data sets can be a bit, oh, I don't want to share my confidential data with anyone. So if you can learn those skills through anonymized data sets, which are hopefully quite fun too, then surely that's a better way. So I'm going to hop over to the website now. So this is some numbers. We all like numbers as data people, right? A number that isn't up there that probably should be is that there are 106 challenges to date, which probably isn't that surprising. I told you it's been going for 2 years, but that still is pretty impressive to me. Having known it from almost, the beginning, it's pretty cool that it's now in the 106 mark, and we've had 372 unique participants with over 2,800 submissions. And that's just kind of the people that tell us about that as well. And submit through the participation tracker. Not everyone does, as they might not be aware of it, for example. So if I just hop along to another tab, sorry, it's in the way, there we go. You might be thinking, with our, I've gone ahead of myself, sorry. I need to actually tell you about the challenge we're going to be looking at today and how you actually see the challenges themselves. So each week, it's a weekly challenge site. We give you a challenge and we release it here on the home screen. So you'll see that the most recent week we have is around a vegan shopping list, working out what products are vegan and which products are not on our shopping list, which is really cool. That one was designed by Jonathan. But the one that we're going to be talking about today is from week 6, and you can see that we have our challenge here and above it the solution. So on the Wednesday, we release challenges every single Wednesday, and then on the Tuesday, you get a solution. And just to talk you through the kind of overview of how the challenge is structured, you get a nice little introduction to our thinking of why this challenge might be useful to help your data preparation skills. You get an input data set, some requirements, and then an output data set. So in theory, you could just look at the input data set, look at the output data set, and work out all the steps in between yourself. You don't actually need to use the requirements, but obviously the requirements are helpful to start you off going in the right direction. And we've even started this year really thinking about new beginners to prepping data, and we've started including these little help links too. So they won't tell you exactly what to do, but they'll tell you the type of technique that you might need to think about to help you with that specific requirement, which hopefully we've got some good feedback about that. So it's something we want to keep trying to do, keep trying to encourage anyone, no matter when they're joining Preppin Data, to get involved basically. But obviously you don't have to start on the week that is currently going. You can go back to sort of some of the easier challenges, completely up to you. But anyway, the challenge comes out on a Wednesday and you don't get the solution till the Tuesday. So what do you do if you're getting stuck? Well, there are a couple of ways that you can get help. We have on the Tableau forums, Preppin Data group, where you can find that we'll post each weekly challenge as well. And then you can comment on that, any questions that you might have. Some people, like Rosario, she'll always post her solution there too. So there's always kind of usually a workflow that you can download and start getting help from. But then there's also Twitter. Using the hashtag PreppinData, you can always post, questions. We always release the challenges on Twitter too, so there's always a chance to get involved there as well. And I just wanted to show an example. I hope that Shazad doesn't mind me using this. I saw that him pop up into the participants, but this is just a great example from this week of just his tweet with the solution saying, but I'm a bit stuck on the very last step. And then you see that the community comes together and has some suggestions of how to move forwards with that. So it's always worth reaching out for help and getting involved, because it's just a great way to learn and progress basically your data prep skills. So let me come back to the PowerPoint and answer more of the how questions again. How do you get started with those challenges? How do you come up with them? So between the 4 of us, we've had lots of different ideas for challenges, but there are kind of 4 kind of key buckets that they fall into, I guess. So one of those would be, if I click correctly, to highlight the shiny new features of Tableau Prep. Now I'm sure that Maraki will go into this a little bit more in her talk, but Tableau Prep has a slightly more frequent release schedule than Tableau Desktop. So there's always plenty of shiny new features to highlight in the challenges. So one that springs to my mind actually is the fiscal years capability within Tableau Prep. So you can, if your financial year, for example, starts in September rather than the default of April, for example, here in the UK, then you have the ability to sort of control that in Tableau Prep and use your custom fiscal years. And that's a feature that I think maybe went over some people's heads because it was one of the kind of middle releases of Tableau Prep. So definitely drawing people's attention to that, showing them a cool new way to manage that in their data prep is something that helps us to come up with challenges. Another way is that we think about specific charts that you might want to build in Tableau Desktop or other data visualization softwares, and think about the structure that you might need for your data to be in order to build that chart. And you might notice that I've got a spider chart there. And that's because last year we had a challenge around building a spider chart. So we have like what it would look like if you were to put it into Tableau Desktop, the starting data set, and the steps you need to take to transform your data into a way that is easy to create a spider chart in Tableau Desktop. So you can imagine that if you had data that was starting off in a similar kind of unclean format of your own, professional data set that you're looking at, you then have a step-by-step guide of a data set that you can collaborate on to understand what's going on and transform your own data in parallel. So that's just a nice technique too. We always want to make sure that you're learning useful skills with the challenges, right? And my favorite way to get new challenges is to collaborate with various members of the community. So, I mean, we've had Kate Brown give us a couple of challenges, Michael Highway, even Jack's given us some. And it's always really useful to get other people's perspectives. How are they using Tableau Prep? What issues are they finding? Because there's always more that we can all learn. And if any of you have any ideas and you want to collaborate on a challenge, then we'd always be happy to hear that, because that would just be a really great way to keep us learning too. So please do feel free to reach out on Twitter. I know that my name is my Twitter handle is in the tweets that Data Plus Women are doing, so keep an eye on them too. And finally, the other way to come up with the challenges is to look out for real-world applications. So this is in our day-to-day jobs. That's actually a really nice one as well. I mean, don't worry, we're not using the real data sets that we come into contact with. We're always just taking the data sets, completely anonymizing them, making them up, putting them in terms of our fake companies such as Chin & Bid, Sudsco, or Prep Air, our airline, and turning those into data sets that have the same sort of structural challenges, but with completely made up data. So never worry about that. And the other thing I just wanted to mention in terms of running a community challenge, if it's something you're thinking of doing either externally or maybe it's something you want to do within your own company, these are all great tips on how to come up with those data sets. But then also I would want to just say, like, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Like, Preppin data has never been 100% perfect. There are weeks where we release things and we've done a slight error in our logic, maybe. And it's just great that the community is there on Twitter to kind of ask questions that make us reevaluate and rethink our solutions. There's often, my other favorite thing about doing Preppin data is that there are so many different solutions out there as well. I'll come up with a twisting, winding workflow sometimes that someone else will just have done a 3-step solution, and I'll be like, oh wow, that's really cool. And that's what we're all here to do, all here to learn. And yeah, so my 2 calls to action so far would be get involved with doing the challenges and come and help us create a challenge if you like. And then just quickly to go through a teeny tiny little bit of a demo of what I'm actually talking about. So if I hop back to Preppin data website, then we're going to look at this comparing the prize money, the prize winnings of male and female golfers. That came from a Sports Biz Sunday, another community that is created and working with data. And it came from Kate Brown. So thank you again for Kate Brown and her contribution to Preppin data. So we're just looking at, basically, we have the men's golf and the women's golf. And what's the difference in prize money between those 2 tours? So I will preface by saying golf is not my strong suit. And there are lots of different reasons as to why there may be discrepancies or differences in the prize earnings, but we're just here to investigate what might be the reason behind it, rather than to speculate about the nitty-gritty of golfing datasets. So what I've got already in Tableau Prep is just the dataset inputted. And we can see from our input step that we just have a simple dataset that tells me the player name, how much money they earned in 2019, the number of events they participated in, and which tour they're from. So the PGA is the men and the LPGA is the women's. And if I just add in a clean step after that, then I can start to explore my data a little bit more. And that's all that I want to do here. So down below, we can see the data as you would normally see it in Tableau Desktop. So, a row for each player name, their money, how many events, etc. But in the middle here, this is what I want to draw your attention to, is the profile pane. And this is where we can really start to understand our data set a bit better. So if I look at my player names, then, if just hovering over there, I've shown you that we have 200 unique values. So we've got 200 players. And this rectangle down beside our player names, that's all very uniform. So we know that we have the same number of rows for every single player. And if I hover over a player, I can see that there's one row for this Abraham answer. And that means that there's one row for every player. That's what that rectangle is telling me here. Whereas the distribution of my money is not so uniform. This is basically just a histogram at the side here. We are used to seeing them maybe vertically, but this is just a horizontal histogram. And we can see that by far the highest bin is the 0 to 500,000 earnings. So 59 of our 200 players earn between $0 and $500,000 in this tour. And what's cool about this profile pane is that I can click on that and I can learn straight away without doing anything else that all of the people who are earning between $0 and $500 million are in the women's tour. So, okay, we're already starting to get a bit of an idea of how this is going, this data set, because we can see also that women are sort of participating in a similar number of events. They're not always towards the lower end of this event spectrum. So maybe we want to just investigate that a little bit further. Maybe we want to aggregate our data to the tour level, as is suggested in the challenge. So I can add in an aggregate step to start to look at that. So I can group my tour, and then I get 2 rows now instead of those 200. And I've just got one row for the LPGA and one row for the PGA, one row for the ladies, one row for the men's. And I can sum the total prize fund across all of the data set, just grouping by each of those. And I can see that for my women's data set, we have $58 million in total. And for the men's, we have $256 million in total. So that's kind of like 4 or 5 times more the prize money for the men than the women. So that's going even further than what we thought before of the discrepancies between the men and the women there. That's really interesting. Let's investigate more about the number of events. Is it that, despite our brief look at the data, is it that the women just participate in less events than men? So I'm just going to double click on the events there to see. And I can see that when I look at my women's, they're participating in 2,266 events, and the men are participating in 2,282. So 16 more events overall, relating to almost 5 times, more prize money. That's okay. That's interesting. Maybe there's a difference in the number of players if I just do a count distinct of the player name. But no, actually, there's 100 of men and 100 women. So that's not what's causing this disparity either. So I'm going to leave you with the challenge to go ahead and complete the rest of this challenge to further investigate this data set. And my call to action will also be that I really want you to get involved in prepping data. Would love to see you guys on Twitter posting things. Here are some of the challenges that don't require written calculations if you're new to data prep in general. That's a link there that I will post in the chat after this session. And my final call to action is really to come and collaborate with us on a challenge, because the best way to get involved would be to come and help us. So I'd love to hear your ideas on that. And I just want to finish off by saying a quick thank you. And I see there might be a couple of questions that I can answer, so happy to do that. So let me just read those out. So we've got Kimberly McKinney asked, do the challenges say how difficult they are, beginner, intermediate, or advanced? That is coming at the moment in the challenge tracker. We ask everyone who submits the challenge to sort of rate the challenge difficulty. You know, is it really, really super hard and everyone cried? Or is it, yeah, it's okay. So we are going to start incorporating that into the challenge tracker so that you can sort of see how everyone else has found the challenge. Sometimes things that I think are going to be easy end up not being. So sometimes things that I think will be hard, everyone is just getting them like that. So it's quite subjective. So getting as many people rating those challenges is actually the better way to do that. And is there a challenge to build a Sankey in Preppin data? There is not yet, but that is certainly something we could think to do. I know that Carl's just built a Sankey recently, so whilst it's fresh in his mind, I should ask him to build a Preppin data to do that too. So I hope that answered those questions for you. Oop, I just saw another one pop in. I want to know which or if there is any technical difference between preparing data in Tableau Prep and Tableau Desktop. Yeah, so the difference between Tableau Prep and Tableau Desktop, you can do some of the data prep things that you can do in Tableau Prep in Desktop in the data source pane. But for example, you can pivot in Tableau Desktop. You can go from columns down to rows. But if you want to go from rows to columns in Tableau Desktop, you can't. So if you want to reshape your data in a slightly different way, there's not the ability to do that in Tableau Desktop, whereas in Tableau Prep, that's very easy and part of the pivot step as well. So there's just more functionality. Okay, and I've got another question there. So if I have created a custom group in one data set, is there a way to export this custom group out to use in another data set? Another data set may have a similar column, so I can group the data in a similar way. I don't want to redo grouping again. Okay, so I think that you're talking about the ability to use group and replace in Tableau Prep. So there are a number of different ways that you can do that grouping. You can group by like pronunciation, you can group by common characters, you can set up a manual group. At the moment, I can't think at the moment of a way that you could carry that across to another data set with different values without having to redo that again. Jack, do you have any ideas? To put you on the spot.
No, off the top of my head. I was kind of thinking if yeah, go on, Mariki.
Yeah, so if I could quickly jump in here, so hi everybody, my name's Mariki. I'm one of the product managers on the Tableau Prep team. I'll chat with you guys a little bit later about some of the things that are up and coming. There's a feature called reusable steps that actually allows you to import both the steps as well as the individual changes that happen within a particular step for reuse on other flows. So it's essentially like you're copying, you're pasting it within the same flow, which is a functionality that exists today. But what this allows you to do is export it and save it locally, or actually even publish it to a server environment for your community to consume. So that would be the way to go around that particular ask, if that makes sense.
Perfect. I need to start using Tableau Prep a little bit more. Falling behind. Jenny, I had a question for you. So what advice would you offer up to people if they were looking at or thinking about starting their own sort of community challenge, or maybe like an internal center of excellence within their workplace?
Yeah, I think I briefly touched on one of my tips. I got a bit mixed up, but definitely just don't be afraid to just start out and you'll make a few mistakes. Your users will tell you that you've made a few mistakes, but you kind of build up that relationship and it's a friendly community. No one wants to just tell you you're wrong. Everyone recognizes your hard work and sort of helping to contribute to the community. But other than that, practically, if it's in terms of actually generating data sets, that's sort of something that sometimes we get asked about quite a lot. Then stuff like a website called Mockaroo is a really useful resource for generating data in specific distributions, if that was something that you were looking for, realistic data sets.
Yeah, Mockaroo is definitely a really good resource to utilize if you're looking at creating challenges. Cool. Thanks, Jenny. I think I mean, we could sit on the Q&A for ages and there's going to be more and more come in, but we'll move on. But if you could have a look in there, and if there's any you feel you can answer, then go for it. But thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny.
Thanks for having me.
That was really great to listen to. So up next, we've got Sarah Ceylani, who will talk about and do a hands-on about Tableau Prep and do a bit more of an introduction to it. So thanks, Jenny. Sarah, over to you.
Thanks, Ellie and Jenny. Let me just start sharing my screen. Really excited to be discussing this with you guys today. So we're just going to be going through an introductory session. As everyone earlier said, my name is Sarah and I'm actually a solutions engineer at Tableau. Just for anyone who missed it, please download the data and obviously a trial of prep using this URL. The URLs have been shared in the chat box, so hopefully you'll have all of them there. And again, if you have any questions, then please do use that chat box. So why do we actually have Tableau Prep? Well, data prep is challenging. Customers can't analyze their data because the data is in the wrong shape, which means they can't use Tableau. So a lot of the time, getting data into the right shape can be repetitive, it can be manual, time consuming, a number of different difficult processes. And actually, according to the Harvard Business Review, many analysts spend 80% of their time prepping data and only 20% of their time analyzing it. So actually, analysts and business users often try to get the data in the right format for themselves or for others, but they get stuck because they have no tool, or maybe because existing tools are too complicated, or they're too expensive, or they require specialized skills. So as a result, they often give up or rely on others to do it for them, or just persevere, but for hours and hours on end. So data prep is often done independently of analysis, and that sometimes creates a gap between the data prep output and what you're actually trying to accomplish from an analytical perspective. And this gap can create time-consuming rework when the data prep output doesn't actually meet the needs of the analyst. So we're hoping, our customers and our Tableau users can spend more time answering their questions from their data and less time getting it ready actually for analysis. And that is where Tableau Prep comes in. So hopefully it helps everyone quickly and confidently get their data ready for analysis. Most of our users have a data prep problem, and typically they actually solve them in Excel. So very few have a data prep tool. And the question we had at Tableau was, can we make data prep as simple as building a viz by making it visual, direct, and smart? And our answer to that is Tableau Prep. So hopefully Tableau Prep empowers more people to get to analysis faster by helping them quickly and confidently combine, shape, and clean their data. A direct and visual experience gives our users a deeper understanding of their data. Smart features make the data prep simple, and the integration with Tableau, with the Tableau analytical workflow, allows for faster speed to insight. So let's actually take a look at each of these points in a little bit more detail. So how do you get a deeper understanding of your data? Well, Prep gives you a complete picture of your data by providing you with 3 coordinated views that provide a complete picture of your data and flow. And you have the flexibility to pick which view you want to interact with based on the task at hand. You get immediate results as well. So if you want to drop a column, you right click and select remove and it's gone. If you want to edit a value, you can select it and directly edit and you'll see that instantly. And with each action, you see that instant impact, even on millions of rows of data with sampling. So this direct and immediate experience helps you instantly see the result of your actions, giving you the freedom to kind of reorder those steps and experiment without consequence. Very similar to Tableau Desktop. Prep also makes complex tasks simple, as it has customized visual experiences to make common yet complex tasks such as joins, unions, pivots, aggregations simple. It's a drag and drop experience that does not require scripting. And these intuitive experiences help you get those desired results faster and with greater confidence. Let's talk about those smart features now. So this makes data prep fast and simple. Tableau Prep uses smart algorithms to fix common data prep challenges. So for an example, Tableau Prep employs fuzzy clustering to turn repetitive tasks like grouping by pronunciation or cleaning based on punctuation into one-click operations. It also intelligently pushes operations down to the database when possible, letting you leverage existing database investments to get fast flow execution performance. Integration. So you can actually stay in the flow of your analysis, as it's easy to open your flow output with Tableau Desktop or share it via server or online. Easy sharing reduces friction and helps you bridge that gap between analytics and data preparation for better business results. Tableau Prep uses Tableau's data connectors, its calculation language, and governance structure so that you can get up to speed quickly and can collaborate at any point in the analytical process. So that was a lot of information just hit at you all at once. So I'll stop talking as much and I will put Tableau Prep into action. And please do remember to use the chat box to ask your questions as you think of them, and we'll be answering them as we go along. Perfect. So I've now got Tableau Prep open, and Tableau Prep's UI is very similar to Tableau Desktop's UI. So I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Tableau Desktop. Here you have all of your connections. If I click on this plus here, you'll be able to see all of those databases and file formats that we typically connect to. That Discover pane that's very familiar in Tableau Desktop, and obviously anything else that you may have previously opened. So if I go ahead and connect to data, I can click on that text file or whatever it may be that my data is in the format of, and I'll go ahead and first off select my Superstore data. So this is now just coming into Tableau Prep, and I can see that pretty instantly. I get a settings and operations window to begin with, and this is where I can do things like, I don't know, if I had multiple files where I needed a wildcard union and they were all in the same folder, I could bring them in here. If I wanted to select specific fields to drop because I know I won't need them kind of ever in this flow, then I can drop them from here as well. I can filter values, do a number of different things. So the very first thing that we typically do when we're sat in Tableau Prep is we click this plus icon here. And from this plus icon, we can see a number of different things that we can do. So in Tableau Prep, you can clean, you can aggregate, pivot, join, union, bring in a script. So this is a Python or R script if you wanted to do sentiment analysis, for example, or an output, which is just finally that flow that you push out and you have your data source ready to go. So for me, the first thing that I want to do is click this clean step. Perfect. So now I can see those three different windows that I was talking about. So we have my flow pane, my profile pane, and my details pane going from top to bottom. And already I'm starting to see some really great insights from my profile pane. So I can see already, the region that my customers typically purchase from is that central region. South is my worst region. They typically purchase consumer products. There's a number of different things that, I can bring into play here. Tableau also gives me recommendations. So for example, it's seen that The city data role is a city, so it's telling me to change that, and I can apply that straight away, and it becomes a city. It will continue giving me those recommendations based on what Tableau sees that I need to improve on within my data. The next thing I can do is actually go into this city pane, and I can actually start to order this data. So I can see, you know, London, Berlin. I can see, obviously, London is my number one place to be purchasing that, having my customers purchase from. So I'm already starting to understand my business. I've been able to come to conclusions about my data before I've even started analyzing it. Now, if I carry on, I can just start to, you know, hover over everything that I see here, make sure everything's looking in order, which it does seem to be. And I can now bring in my second data source. So let's bring in my supply max data source, which is the data source that I've acquired from my company. So this is a second store, and we want to just see what this is looking like. So I'll bring in this clean step again, and we can start to see that actually this data is looking a little bit more dirty. I can see things like this product ID. This one's looking unusual. I can see my ship mode, for example. We've got a lot of duplicates. If I carry on over to sales, I've got a minus 10,000 somehow from my sales. So these are things I need to clean up. I can see that, you know, this data is much dirtier than my own company's data. So let's start off with my ship mode. The very first thing I want to do is I want to group my values, and I want to do that based on I think it's common characters. No, it was based on pronunciation. And you can see as soon as I've done that grouping, those groups of first class, same day, second class, standard class, they get grouped together as one, and I can increase and decrease that grouping based on what I see as fit. If I click done here, that is now my ship mode data cleaned up. All of those classes are now using the same terminology. If I also go to that sales field that had the minus 10,000, this is obviously just dirty data. This is something that I don't want to keep. So I can go ahead, right click that and exclude that from my data. And you'll see that once I do that, that product ID has disappeared as well. Now to start analyzing my data here, I can start to see, you know, where are these cities that people are buying from. This is only a store in the Netherlands, and I can see Amsterdam by far and away is our biggest seller of a city, so that's really good to know. There's a number of different other things that I could do too. Take a look at Tableau Prep's recommendations, but for now I'm pretty happy with this, and I can just go ahead and go to my next step. Now, the thing that I need to do here is I need to combine this data. And actually, I know that this data is very much in the same format as that EU Superstore data. So what I can do is actually bring in a union step. I don't actually need to join this data. I don't want more columns. What I want is to put stack these two data sets on top of one another. They have the same columns, so I can go ahead and do that with a union. And I've brought in a union step here. Now, in order to just make that a union, I can do that together. And we can just remove this one since we've got that union there. So now I've got my union, and we can see that Tableau Prep is really intuitive with how it's done that union. I can see exactly where the data is coming from all the different columns. So there's three columns here that Tableau Prep couldn't find a union for, but we can see the rest of my columns, they are all from both of those two data sources, because they're both blue and orange. Now, if I go back to those two that we haven't combined, we can actually see that quantity in units sold is exactly the same. So what I can do is just merge those two together, and I've got one field of just quantity sold now. Again, with company, this is the same as kind of table name, so I can go ahead and remove this column. And what I can do instead is just go ahead and rename this Superstore and the other field as Supply Max, because then that will tell me where each of my where each of the columns are coming from in terms of store name, and I can go ahead and rename this column store name. Perfect. So now I've got that data pretty cleaned up. I've got store name, and every other column has a combination of the two fields. So I can start, dealing with that. If I wanted to make sure that everything is clean, I can click on this tick box to show me only the mismatch fields, and I can see there's no mismatch fields. So now I feel pretty confident in the work I've done. Clearly, I've made sure that everything is matched up, which is great. The next thing I want to do is actually bring in my master product list. This will tell me what type of products I'm selling, and it will give me more details on that product ID field that we may have seen earlier. So I'll go ahead again, bring in another connection, and I'll bring in that product info CSV. And I can see that that product ID, product name, subcategory, etc. is all there. So what I can do now is add that clean step just to make sure that everything looks good to me, which I think it does. So with that, I can go ahead and actually just join it onto my union. So again, really easy, drag and drop, kind of how you use the marks card. You just hover over the thing you want to do, and you can just drag and drop that into Tableau Prep, and now we're carrying out a join. So joins can actually be pretty intimidating. How do I know that, my data isn't being duplicated or excluded? But Prep makes this a really visual, intuitive experience. If I click on any piece of this join, so I change the join type, my summary of join results actually changes. So we can see here I've done a left join, and that excluded number has been updated. If I remove that, we can see that that changes. If I do a right join again, we'll see what happens. So that helps me with my join result to visualize what's going on, because I can see based on my actual summary of results and the detail and profile pane, what's going on when I do certain things to my join. Now, I actually know that an inner join is going to work here because I know that we don't have all of the data that we need from the master product list. We don't have a transaction for every product that we make. But I do still see that 10 rows are being excluded from my transactional data. So I want to dig into this. And you'll see that as soon as I clicked onto that, the profile pane and detail pane updated to only show me those 10 results that are excluded. Now, if we move over to product ID, I can see that actually we have some dirty data. We can see that my ID has some extra dashes into it. So what I can do is I can edit this value, hopefully. So that join is now being completed. So that's really important for me to make sure that I've done that. For some reason, I don't think this is letting me edit the value, but if we were in a real situation, I'd be able to edit this value and remove those extra dashes, which for some reason Tableau Prep doesn't want to play ball with me, which always seems to happen in a webinar. So instead of playing around with that, I'll just exclude this data to make sure that we don't have any unmatched rows within our join results. And you can see here now that our excluded has gone down to 0, and we have that clean join result, which is great. So I've got all of that now, and I'm pretty happy with how everything's gone so far. I've got the data I need. Maybe there's been a couple of issues along the way, but I can sort them at a later time if it's really, really necessary. If I want to as well, if I click on a clean step here, I can just take a once over on everything that I need to do. I can maybe filter values. I can create a calculated field on my data. There's a number of different things I could do if I really wanted to. But for now, you know, I've got my store name, my 2 stores, everything else seems pretty clean. So I'm happy with that. And there's a couple of things that I can now do at this point. The first thing is I can actually right click on this data and I can preview it in Tableau Desktop. And this preview in Tableau Desktop is really quite interesting because it allows me to see a sample of this data in Tableau Desktop, so I can start playing around with it to see if the analysis matches the thing that I wanted from my data set. So that's really, really an integral part of keeping you in the flow. Before you push something out, you can just double check it in Tableau Desktop. Alternatively, I can as well set up an output step. So this will enable me to either push this clean data either to a file as a publisher as a data source on my server, or I can actually write back to my original database as well. Say if I was using a Microsoft SQL or something as my data, I can actually write back to that and rewrite what the data has within SQL. For now, I'm pretty happy with a file-based format, so I'll go ahead and call this Superstore Full. Oh, if it lets me. So let's say Superstore Full. And then what I can do is either save it as a CSV or a hyperfile. And in terms of the write options, I have 2 options here. So if my table already exists, I can create that table. If it doesn't, so if I have that brand new table, I've got that now created. If I'm redoing this flow, so for example, I set this up to run every day, I can just append the new data to the original table that existed. So that's something some of our customers like to do, where maybe they'll have a create table set up once a week to make sure that everything is being pushed into the data source properly, but they'll have an append to table for just only the new rows once a day. So there's a couple of options there for you as well. Finally, all I need to do is run that flow, and that will be pushed up into whichever output option that I've chosen, whether that's file, whether that's my original database table, or whether that's the server. So in the past few minutes, we've connected to, combined, and cleaned data in a visual, direct, and intuitive way using Tableau Prep's innovative interface. Through just a few click, drags, and drops, I've brought in data from flat files, cleaned up thousands of rows of dirty data, and outputted the file in a flexible and integrated format with no scripting or coding required. I was even able to make some quick insights. I now know that Supply Max has high sales in Amsterdam, which is something I definitely want to explore later. And we were able to do all of this in about 10-15 minutes. So I just want to thank you all for joining me on this high-level overview. If you couldn't keep up with me, don't worry, we will send out the recording so that you can go back and see any steps that you missed. And I will now hand it back over to Ellie.
Hi Sarah, how are you? Thank you so much for the intro there. That was a really great overview. I think there are just a couple of questions in the Q&A.
Yeah.
One question from Orlando is that how do you check the quality of data before you go into Tableau Prep and start the cleaning?
So typically with the quality of data before you go into Tableau Prep, this is something that we like to recommend getting into the flow of just going into Tableau Prep first and foremost. and then being able to see all of the data there and cleaning anything that you need up and then pushing it into Tableau Desktop. I mean, worst that can happen is you push it to Tableau Prep, it only needs a couple of changes, and you then push it to Tableau Desktop. So I'd recommend getting into that type of habit, because it really serves you well in the long run.
Cool, thank you. One from Maura in the chat is that if you manually edit the data, will those edits carry over if you automate it?
Yep, so if you maintain the flow, in terms of maintaining it, so if you automate it, I'm assuming by this you mean, setting up a flow to run every day or every week or whatever, then those edits do carry over if you automate it. So it will just carry out the same exact flow that you've set up to then be carried out on that daily or weekly basis. And so long as you keep it in Tableau Prep, you can actually see all of those edits that you've made as well. So there is actually an edits pane in Tableau Prep, so you can check out all of those changes that you've carried out.
That's great, thank you. And I think one last question for me was just, do you have a favorite tip that you try and suggest to beginners about Tableau Prep?
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite tip would be, I think it's kind of two things. So typically users fall into one of two buckets. They either think they know their data too well and they skim over things and miss important steps. And I think it's really good to kind of pretend you don't know much about the data, because then you go into it with a fresh mind and you can actually, see those changes that you need to take into effect. The other bucket that users sometimes fall into is thinking that they know nothing about their data. They're a bit worried to do certain things to the data. Remember that Tableau Prep only sits on top of your data unless you force it to not sit on top of your data and write back. So that means that you have that flexibility to kind of go crazy and explore your data and prep it as much as you want to without it affecting your business. So I think they're two really important things to consider, to kind of sit in the middle. Don't be one way or the other.
Yeah, and I also love that, given that it's like Tableau Desktop, that if you do something and it all goes wrong or feels like it all goes wrong, you can just press the undo button, which I think is so useful.
I know, the undo button has, I'm sure, saved us all many a time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, if anyone's missed that and it was too quick, then we will share the recording link. But thank you. That was really great.
No worries.
So now we'll hand over to Mariki, who will take us through the Tableau roadmap. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, good morning from Seattle. Good evening to you in London. I wish we were doing this in person, but hopefully sometime next year we'll be able to do that. I want to first start by just saying a quick thank you for inviting me into this space, but also for all of the folks that organized this particular meetup. These meetups and our communities are the pulse of Tableau, and it's what makes my job such a joy. So thank you all for being here, as well as for continuing to organize these types of events. So let me quickly share my screen. And oops. All right. Okay. So like I said, my name is Mariki. I'm on the Tableau data management team, specifically focused on Tableau Prep. I was part of the team that shipped the first V1 of Tableau Prep on April 24th, 2018. Funny story, yes, we do celebrate that day. So Tableau Prep will be a 3-year-old toddler coming this April. Rapinder was going to join me, but she's been having some technical difficulties, so she won't be on this call, unfortunately. So y'all are just stuck with me. So we're going to be walking through a couple of things to kind of help lay some groundwork on top of what Sarah discussed with you as well as talk a little bit about some of the future items that are coming in. So before I jump into this, I do want to quickly show this slide. Just a quick note that we want to make sure that all purchasing decisions and things like that are based off of items that are currently available out in the market. We share a lot of these sort of high-level roadmap items for the sake of getting your feedback, but also because we want to make sure that we're transparent with how we're thinking about the problems and how we're prioritizing the problems that we're hearing about and seeing out in the community. So just a quick note on that. So when you think about the Tableau platform, there are several components to it, right? There's analytics, there's things that we do that are powered by AI, like Ask Data and Explore Data. We have a lot of tools for developers, as well as for admins who are working within our cloud and on-premise servers. We have ways in which we've guaranteed that the platform can be enterprise ready. But today, right, we're going to focus specifically on self-service data management and more specifically on Tableau Prep. So why do we call it self-service data management? And why is that actually a focus? And the reason for that is because before you delve into anything that you do with your data, right, before you deploy your server, before you analyze your data, leverage any of our AI-powered capabilities, you have to be able to effectively discover, effectively prepare, and effectively govern the right data. And that's where Tableau's data management and more specifically, Tableau Prep comes into play. So we typically talk a little bit about what our approach is. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a convergence. And what that means is we are trying to ensure that we can create a centralized platform that allows you to effectively prepare your data. So, and the mission, which Sarah alluded to for self-service data management, is to help people govern, discover, trust, and operationalize their data pipelines. And that is made up of Tableau Catalog, Prep Builder, and Prep Conductor. So what is Tableau Prep Builder? And again, Sarah alluded to a little bit of this today, but I do want to delve a little deeper just because it lays the groundwork for why we are choosing to go out and build the things that we're building. The first pillar in helping people get their data ready for analysis is visual and direct, right? There's the 3 coordinated views that you all just saw. There's the ability to select and filter. There are the color schemes that you see, right? And the color coordination that takes place across your entire flow, regardless of what you're doing, as well as the visual experience that we've built around joins, unions, pivots, aggregates, right? To make a lot of those visual transformations easy to do, right? You shouldn't have to write code. You should be able to effectively correct your mistakes. And that's what our visual and direct platform allows you to do. The second piece is centered around the smarts that we have in place to help save you time, right? So we have Smart SQL Pushdown to help you run your flows and your data pipelines a lot faster. And this comes into play both for the desktop app, Prep Builder, as well as on the web, whether you're leveraging Prep Web Authoring or Prep Conductor to run your flows. We have fuzzy grouping, as you saw earlier, but we also have cleaning and shaping recommendations that allow you to identify and quickly correct some of the most common data preparation issues that we've seen people typically run into. The last piece is that Tableau Prep Builder is integrated within Tableau. We have over 50 data sources and growing. We have calcs that will allow you to more effectively kind of enrich your data preparation. So if you know how to write a calculation in Tableau Desktop, then you'll know how to write a calculation within Tableau Prep as well. But we've also added extensions to those calculations that make them a little bit more visual and direct. So for example, we have rank and LOD an experience around rank and LOD to make it more effective, to help you quickly correct and find issues, quickly figure out, what are the different groupings and what is the construct of this particular calculation in a visual way, so that you're not having to write that calculation out. But we also have extensibility with Python and R, so that if you have things that you need to do outside of the Tableau Prep platform that you then want to bring in, you're able to do that effectively. The other piece is Tableau Prep Conductor, and this was something that was released in early 2019. The idea behind Tableau Prep Conductor is self-service data prep at scale. And what this allows you to do is publish and schedule flows. It gives you visibility into your data pipeline. It allows you to, see your run history, receive alerts about your flow runs. And again, it's integrated within the Tableau server platform. So you don't have to install your own separate server to publish and schedule your Tableau Prep flows. You just have to toggle on the data management add-on if you have it, and leverage Tableau Prep Conductor to do that. So what are some of the really cool things that came out last year? And first and foremost, we introduced the ability to write back to a database. So as of the 2020.3 release, you're able to write back to Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, PostgreSQL, Amazon Redshift, Snowflake, Oracle, and Teradata. This list will continue to grow over time, but these were the initial list of connectors that we wanted to support write-back capabilities into, based off of feedback that we received from our wonderful customers like yourselves. And this has been a really powerful tool for our customers in helping them use their prepared data, not just within Tableau, but outside of the Tableau context. So our general take on this has been, we want to help you prepare data anywhere for any use case for any platform. All right, so one of the things I just mentioned, right, is prepare data anywhere. And that is now made possible with the ability to leverage the prep authoring experience within the browser. So if you have Tableau Online or Tableau on-premise server, you can now leverage prep web authoring as long as you're a creator within that context. That means you can connect to your data. That means you can build your flow like Sarah did earlier today. That means you can publish that flow and go ahead and run it, as well as leverage some of our advanced capabilities like write back to database and things like that. Some of the cool things that come with this capability is built-in autosave. So we have automatic autosave that keeps track of your drafts, and that makes it possible for you to not lose your work, which is really powerful. We also have file upload, but also we allow you to isolate your prep web authoring jobs on a separate node, similar to Prep Conductor. And that's for performance reasons, right? We don't want there to be a lot of resource contention between everything else that's going on in your server and the folks that are preparing data or running flows. So this was released in 2020.4. We considered it our early Christmas gift to the community. So love to learn a little bit more about how and if you're using this particular platform, what challenges you might be running into with it, and the ways in which you're succeeding as well. And you can always DM me on Twitter or reach out to me via email if you want to share feedback on this.
So we'll go into the Q&A. There are a few, so one from Colin here, and I know this comes up quite a bit within the community. Are there any plans at the moment to have any prep certification, as there is with desktop and server?
That's a great question. The certification program isn't typically within the dev team, so I can't speak to that. But that is definitely something that I can reach out to that particular team and learn a little bit more about what their plans are. The idea, right, is that we want to make sure that customers have the ability to be as successful with the Tableau Prep platform as they are with all other platforms within the Tableau ecosystem. So I understand where the need for a certification program comes from. So thank you for the question.
It's all right. Some other ones here, let's have a look. If I don't have a date field or any column to identify the new data, are there any ways to do an incremental load? Can I just rely on there as a primary key in the destination table that will prevent duplicate roads? I'm assuming you can see the Q&A. I think this is to do with just understanding the logic of how an incremental load works without having a date field or another column to identify new data.
So as long as there's a way for us to know that new data comes in from this point onwards, then we'll be able to apply the incremental refresh. The easiest way that I've seen people do it is with dates, but I'm happy to share the documentation. I would have to quickly look for it here on that particular ask if you want to learn a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Or if you could send it over to me, then I can always send it out with the
cool.
follow-up emails. I think that's everything from the Q&A, unless any of the other panelists have any questions. I don't know if Jenny, you have any questions for Maraki whilst she's with us.
No, that was great. Thanks, Maraki. Me and Carl were like typing away to each other during it.
Awesome. And hey, I'm looking forward to seeing, additional challenges, and thank you for always keeping up with all of the new innovations that are coming out every month and making sure that those are incorporated within the prepping data challenges. I do appreciate all the questions that came in today. Please DM me on Twitter if you want to chat. I also left my email address for somebody there if you want to reach out to me. I can sometimes be a little slow in answering emails just because there's a lot going on our end, but I will quickly share it here. Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Maraki.
Thank you so much. That was great. And just as a reminder for everybody else, along with Maraki's Twitter, this is also other people's as well. So Jenny and Sarah as well. You guys, the talks were all amazing and so interesting. So hopefully everyone else found the same too. So thank you so much. Just a reminder, because I'm aware that it's gone 5:30 UK time. So we should be wrapping up, but just a reminder of the announcements. We've got some free Tableau Prep training with the Information Lab, so sign up for that. We shared the link earlier, but I'll leave this screen on so you can note that down. For Data Plus Women, we also have our LinkedIn group. I've seen that a few of you have joined, so that's great. Looking forward to connecting more with you in the future, but please do join. There's lots of different user groups that post their news there as well, which is great. And if you did fancy speaking yourself for Data Plus Women London, then the address to sign up for that is tinyurl.com/datawomanldn, which is great. Jack, anything else from you?
Nope, I don't have anything else to add.
Awesome. So on that note, thank you very much, everybody, and see you in March for the Data Plus Women International Women's event. So yeah, thank you, everybody. I will flick back to the speakers page. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone, and hope you have a great evening or day if you're over in the US.